When you love someone for 10 years, you believe you know them down to the last cell. You trust in the shared jokes, the unfinished glances over dinner, the silence that once felt warm, but now suffocates. Everything doesn't collapse at once. The cracks appear quietly, like scratches on glass, until one day a phrase shatters the world you thought was unbreakable. I want us to have an open marriage. And you sit there, clenching your hands under the table to hide the tremble, because you realize this isn't a request for freedom. It's a eulogy for the love you built together. In this war for authenticity and personal growth, there will be no heroes, only scorched bridges, betrayal, deception, and a single brutal chance not just to survive, but to reclaim your dignity at any cost, if you don't flinch. Greetings, my dear friend. I am very happy that you are watching my video, and I will be even happier if you subscribe to my channel. This will make me even happier. Let's get started. After 10 years of what felt like an extraordinary marriage, the idea that Clara, my Clara, would ever propose opening our relationship had never once crossed my mind. Everything between us appeared flawless. Yes, our lives were busy. Clara was hustling at her marketing firm, putting in 60-hour weeks, constantly balancing a mountain of clients and deadlines, while I was channeling everything I had into making a name for myself as a comic book illustrator. Despite the madness, I was certain our bond was rock solid, full of fire and depth. We were the couple that others pointed to and envied. That is, until one evening when everything suddenly changed. Clara came through the door, and instantly I knew something was off. It's hard to explain. Her makeup was picture perfect, her blazer crisp, her hair styled with its usual precision. But something vital in her expression had faded. She moved with an unfamiliar sluggishness, letting her bag fall beside the door with a weary thud. Without a word, she served herself some pasta I had made. I poured her a glass of wine, and we sat across from one another in a heavy, uncomfortable quiet. The only sounds were the clinks of silverware against plates, and the occasional tired sigh slipping from her lips. Then, Clara slowly set down her fork, drew in a breath, and met my eyes with a strange, unnerving steadiness. "Raphael," she said, her voice low and composed, "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I want us to try an open marriage." I could only stare. My fork clattered onto my plate, the sound loud and final, like a gavel pounding in a courtroom. "What?" I managed to choke out, trying to laugh it off, but the laugh died halfway up my throat. "Why?" I asked, stunned. Clara didn't so much as flinch. "I miss the feeling of being wanted," she said, as casually as if she were pointing out the weather. Panic thundered through me. "The excitement?" I repeated, my voice spiking before I forced it steady. "You'd gamble everything we have, just for excitement?" "You're being ridiculous," Clara replied breezily, dismissing my fear with a flick of her hand. "Don't act like it's the end of the world, Raphael. I'm not jeopardizing us. I just want the freedom to explore, to be with other men." She said it lightly, as if suggesting we try a new restaurant. "You could see other women, too, if you want," she added, like she was offering me some kind of consolation prize. A bitter, humorless laugh escaped me. "You're actually serious about this? For fun?" Clara leaned back, folding her arms across her chest. "It's not just about intimacy," she insisted, and there was a mixture of sadness and concern in her voice. "I miss the rush, the pursuit, the energy. I feel like I'm living someone else's life, one that doesn't quite fit me anymore." A deep, crushing ache twisted inside me. "And me?" I asked quietly. "Am I just the guy who makes your dinners while you chase after someone new?" Her face softened a little, but in a way that felt almost condescending, as if she was explaining something to a child who couldn't understand. "Don't turn this into betrayal," she said gently, but with unyielding conviction. "It's not about hurting you. It's about living authentically, about being strong enough to be honest. I'm not hiding anything. Isn't honesty what we always promised each other? I shook my head slowly, barely recognizing the woman sitting across from me. If she truly loved me, I thought, how could she even want this? How could the idea even occur to her? If you loved me, I said, this wouldn't be something you'd even consider. If you loved me, Clara shot back, you wouldn't feel so threatened. You'd trust me enough to let me have this. I sat there, paralyzed, my mind spinning wildly. Was this truly the same Clara who once cried at cheesy animated movies with me? The woman who used to sneak little heart-shaped notes into my sketchbooks? I leaned forward, clasping my hands tightly together to hide the slight tremor in them. I chose my words with painful care, fighting to keep my voice even. I've seen enough videos online, I said. Wives sitting across from their husbands, all sweet voices and pleading faces, asking for freedom, calling it an open marriage. Always the same rehearsed speeches, always the same empty promises. And now Clara, my Clara, was one of them. Across the table, her gaze flickered, searching for some reaction. Anger, forgiveness, anything at all she could grab onto. I didn't give her the satisfaction. I just stared back, stretching the silence until it felt like it could snap. At last, in a voice barely above a whisper, I asked, "Who is he, Clara?" Her jaw tightened, her mouth pressing into a thin, grim line. "There's no one," she said hastily. "I can't believe you'd even think that." I didn't move. I didn't blink. "How could you accuse me of something like that?" she demanded, her voice rising sharply, shrill with outrage. The sound made my stomach churn. "You're asking me for permission to sleep with other men," I said, my voice cracking. "How is that not cheating?" She opened her mouth to respond, faltered, then regrouped. "It's different," she said at last. "I haven't done anything yet. I swear. I just wanted to talk about it first. I wanted us to figure it out together. And so we spiraled, spinning in endless circles of debate, our words sharp, our arguments sharper. Around and around we went, revisiting the same wounds, the same agonizing points, as if repetition could somehow change the truth. She hadn't crossed that line yet, but that didn't erase the love she still claimed to feel for me. An open marriage wasn't inherently a disaster. It was simply a different path, a redefinition of what love could mean. She clung to words like freedom, modernity, and connection, as though they were the only things keeping her afloat. But all I could hear was the deafening crash of a wrecking ball tearing through the life we'd spent a decade creating. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up, my voice steady and cold. My answer is no. And honestly, you've just given me the clearest reason yet to end this marriage. Her head jerked up and her eyes locked onto mine, wide and stunned. She looked genuinely blindsided, as if she hadn't truly believed I would say it. Divorce. That night, sleep was a stranger. I sprawled out on the couch, numbly scrolling through endless videos and online forums, searching for anything that might explain what was happening. Every post, every comment, repeated the same brutal truth. When your wife asks for an open relationship, that's the warning sign. That's when you walk away. Across the room, I stared at Clara lying on our bed, her back turned toward me, and something twisted viciously inside. Revulsion, sorrow, a yawning emptiness. Maybe, just maybe, reaching this point meant we were already finished. Over the following days, Clara changed. She seemed to shrink inward, growing quieter, almost timid. The bold, confident woman who had dropped the bomb at dinner seemed to have disappeared. She never raised the topic again. Not openly, not immediately. She moved with careful, calculated steps, as if waiting for the tempest to die down. Some naive part of me still hoped she had realized how close she'd come to destroying everything. Maybe the fear of losing it all had jolted her back to her senses. But that fragile hope was shattered before long. One evening, while I was sketching absent-mindedly in the living room, I heard her approach. She came hesitantly, hands twitching nervously at her sides, stopping just shy of the coffee table. Her face was a storm of conflicting emotions: fear, stubbornness, guilt. "Raphael," she murmured, her voice barely carrying. "I've been thinking about it a lot." I said nothing. I simply put down my pencil and stared at her. She shifted her gaze from the floor up to meet mine, her voice unsteady but stubbornly persistent. "I've been reading articles," she said, "about polyamory, about alternative relationships." She gave a small nod, as if reassuring herself more than me that she was doing the right thing. It was clear she was trying to convince herself even harder than she was trying to persuade me. And then she dropped the bomb. "There's a guy at work," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "His name is Caleb." Something inside me hardened into cold stone. I hadn't known his name until now, but I understood exactly what she meant. It wasn't a casual mention. It was a confession. It sounded like a judgment, like a sentence being passed. "We've met," I said flatly, my voice dead and cold. I held her gaze, refusing to flinch. "So you slept with him?" She didn't answer right away. She only gave a miserable, broken nod, her eyes falling to the floor like a scolded child. "It's not just physical, Raphael," she choked out, her voice splintering. "It's more than that. He makes me feel alive again, like I'm still young, like I'm wanted, free." That word again, free. I stared at the woman I had loved for 10 years, and for the first time I didn't recognize her. It was as if a stranger wore Clara's face. "And you've fallen for him," I said, not even asking, just stating what was obvious. Another nail driven into the coffin of our marriage. A bitter, hollow laugh escaped me before I could stop it. "So that's what this is really about," I said, my voice cutting and furious. "You want to dress up your affair in the costume of an open marriage? Is this your first time, or just the first time you're confessing?" "It's not like that," she cried, her voice tight with panic. "I'm telling you the truth, Raphael. I love you." She gasped for breath as if the walls were caving in. She looked wrecked, desperate. I thought maybe this way we could survive it. "An open marriage is about freedom," she pleaded, "about being forward-thinking, about learning to change. It's not cheating," she said. "It's evolving." I finished the thought for her, spitting the words out like venom. Evolving, sleeping with another man and calling it evolution, rebranding betrayal as some bold, enlightened new lifestyle. "You really believe that, Clara?" I asked, my voice dripping with disbelief. "Can you even hear yourself?" Her jaw clenched tight, and suddenly the fire came back into her eyes. Not regret, not shame, anger. "You won't even try to understand," she snapped. "You're stuck. You're closed off." I retreated inward, the weight of everything bearing down on me until I could hardly breathe. It was smothering, Raphael, smothering, and I despised it. I stood up too fast, the legs of my chair shrieking against the floor, my own knees buckling under the enormity of it all. "You despise it?" I repeated, stunned, my voice raw. "You resent that I held our marriage sacred, that I honored our vows, that I trusted you?" She stared at me, her mouth tightening with rage that could no longer be contained. "I hate you," she hissed, "because you refuse to evolve." She stepped closer, her presence almost vibrating with fury. "I want more, Raphael. I need to actually live." And Caleb makes me feel alive. The way she spoke his name like a possession, something precious she had claimed, ripped through me. But what rose in me wasn't only pain or anger, it was something darker, a grim, twisted sense of liberation. I gazed at the woman who wore my wife's face and felt every emotion I had fought to suppress crash to the surface. I didn't stop them. I let them take over. "You're right," I said quietly, my voice stripped bare. "There's nothing left to save." Her eyes widened in shock, her mouth parted as if to object. But I didn't give her the chance. "I'll contact a lawyer first thing tomorrow," I kept my tone measured, almost detached. We'll negotiate the divorce. I turned my back on her, already knowing the truth. Clara wasn't going to disappear quietly. She would not surrender without dragging this out. The tension had been building for weeks. Clara didn't just whisper about her newfound freedom. She rallied a small army to her side. Her mother, Jenna, her sister, Evelyn, and two of her loudest, most self-important friends, Aubrey and Brooke, banded together like some warped moral tribunal. Their mission: reframe betrayal as bravery and call destruction a path to self-fulfillment. Their ambush came during what was supposed to be a casual evening. We lounged in the living room, picking at greasy burgers while a mindless YouTube video droned on in the background. But soon, the atmosphere shifted, as if on cue. Jenna placed her drink aside, cleared her throat theatrically, and fixed me with a syrupy smile. "Raphael, darling," she said in a voice dripping with manufactured sympathy, "there's something important we need to discuss." I pushed my plate away, interlocking my fingers as I leaned back, ready for the show. Clara quickly aligned herself beside her mother, her gaze fixed on me as if facing down a dangerous animal. Evelyn joined them, stiff and uncomfortable, while Aubrey and Brooke hovered behind like a silent execution squad. Judge, jury, and executioners, every one of them. Jenna seized control of the room. "Raphael, life doesn't have to be so black and white," she began, her tone patronizing. "There's empowerment in ethical non-monogamy." "Empowerment?" I echoed, lifting my eyebrows in disbelief. "Empowerment from what exactly? Honor? Loyalty? Human decency?" Aubrey, always the cynic, leaned in with a scoff. "Come on, Raphael." Clara showed incredible bravery by speaking her truth and advocating for what she needs. I stared at her, my voice cutting through the room like ice. No. She lied. She destroyed trust and now wants to package it as a motivational speech. I stood up slowly, deliberately. The room bristled with tension. There was no need for shouting. The disgust radiating from me said enough. "Unlike all of you," I said, my gaze sweeping over their faces, "I refuse to twist the meaning of commitment just because it became hard or inconvenient." Brooke gave a short, scornful laugh, the smirk on her face a clear signal that cruelty was coming. "You cling to your outdated values," she said, her voice thick with derision, "because you know deep down Clara found someone who can give her what you never could." Clara jerked her head toward Brooke, horror flashing across her face. "Stop," she whispered fiercely. "That's not—" But the damage was done. The words hit with lethal precision. Something inside me fractured beyond repair. A bitter, hollow laugh escaped my throat. "You want the real truth?" I asked, sweeping my arm across the table littered with their flimsy justifications. "I don't care anymore. Not about her. Not about him. Not about any of you." The silence that followed was deafening. I shoved my chair back and stepped forward, meeting all their eyes. "That was it," I said. "That was the final string snapped. This marriage? It's a corpse, a mockery." I turned toward Clara, and she recoiled, as if the mere sight of me wounded her. Good. I threw my hands up, drained and disgusted. And let's not sugarcoat this. It was never about love or liberation. It was about vanity. About Clara's desperate need to feel desired, pursued, worshipped, even if it meant obliterating everything we once had. I turned toward Jenna, facing her fully. You marry someone thinking you understand who they are at their core, only to find out later that you never truly grasped their beliefs about something as basic as loyalty. And when it all comes crashing down, suddenly you're supposed to just adjust. Welcome some so-called modern perspective. That's the grand fix. I kept my tone low, steady. Call it whatever you want, polyamory, progressivism, open marriage. But underneath all the shiny packaging, it's still betrayal. My eyes snapped to Clara, my glare like a physical blow, the bond between us breaking the instant she chose to sleep with someone else behind my back. Clara, who until then had sat frozen, her hands wringing tight in her lap and her skin pale as paper, finally found the courage to speak. "I made a mistake, Raphael," she said, her voice trembling just enough to seem sincere. "But I'm trying to make it right. I want us to grow together," she pressed on. "We could come out of this even stronger, unless you let your fragile pride turn you into some yelling, abusive mess." I gave a short, disbelieving laugh. "Stronger?" I repeated, my gaze narrowing. "You honestly believe that dragging strangers into our marriage is going to strengthen it? That's not healing, Clara. That's insanity." Jenna stayed silent, watching the confrontation, like she was observing a therapy session unfold in real time. Right then, like she'd been waiting for her moment, Aubrey jumped in, her words snapping through the air. "It's not insanity," she said sharply. "Polyamory is a valid relationship structure. It creates a supportive network while keeping emotional and sexual bonds within mutual agreements." She sounded like she was quoting from a lecture. I lifted an eyebrow at her, unimpressed. "If you could set aside your hurt pride for a second," she added, echoing Clara's words, "maybe you'd see it differently. It's not just about anymore." I gave a loud, bitter scoff and shook my head. "Let's not sugarcoat it," I shot back. "It's an excuse to sleep around without facing the consequences." At that, Aubrey lifted her chin, her glare sharp and cutting. "You're so shallow," she spat, her voice dripping with contempt. "If you weren't so obsessed with your petty jealousy, you'd realize how freeing this could be. Clara's being honest with you. She's trying to build something beautiful." "Beautiful?" I cut in, eyes widening. "You talk like you're planning a Pinterest wedding, not a marriage built on real commitment." But she wasn't finished. "You're just too scared to leave your safe little world," she sneered. "You don't even know what it means to be a real man." "A man who thinks ahead," she tacked on. I rose from my chair then, the legs scraping harshly against the floor, the sound deliberate. "I'm not scared," I said, my voice slicing through the room. "I just believe in certain things, loyalty, fidelity, honor in the vows we made." I locked eyes with Clara as I spoke. Her eyes were red and raw, not from crying, but like someone who hadn't seen sunlight for days. "If standing by monogamy makes me conservative," I said, my voice like iron, "then so be it. Brand me. Label me. Write it across my forehead. But don't you dare stand there and tell me I'm wrong for wanting a marriage that means something real." Brooke crossed her arms, her disdain radiating from her like heat from a fire. "You're more concerned with your delicate ego," she said slowly, like she had to spell it out for me, "than you are with actually growing. You can't even see the bigger picture. This could be your chance to evolve. And instead, you're crushing Clara's happiness because you're too insecure to share her." I turned my coldest stare on her, my voice dropping into an icy register. "You really think that's what this is about?" I let out a dry, bitter laugh. "If Clara wants to run to Caleb, or whatever his name is, that's her choice." Clara visibly flinched. "Good. She chose betrayal. She shattered our promises. She lied straight to my face. That's not love. It's garbage, dragged in from the gutter. And now, somehow I'm supposed to believe I'm the one in the wrong." I looked around at the room, at the people arrayed behind her, their blind loyalty forming a wall between us, none of them willing to call her out. "You all stand there," I said, my voice rising with fury, acting like I'm the villain, like I should just roll over and call this growth. I pointed sharply toward the door, my hand trembling with contained rage. "Take your modern nonsense," I said, voice low and shaking, "and get the hell out. I had endured this circus long enough." "Get out," I barked. "And understand this, you haven't even begun to feel the fallout yet." I fixed Clara with a stare meant to cut to the bone. Her face flushed deep red, and she leaned back like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Her gaze blazed with anger. "Raphael, don't be cruel just because you're hurt," she said, her words brittle and sharp. "I'm still your wife." A harsh, humorless laugh tore from me. "Not anymore," I muttered under my breath. The look she gave me, wide-eyed, stunned, was as if I had physically struck her. Her mouth fell open slightly, words failing her. "You haven't even filed the divorce yet," she said, stumbling over the words. I grabbed my coat without even glancing at her. "Oh, don't worry," I said coldly. "You'll have the papers soon enough." Her expression twisted, like someone caught without their disguise. "You're impossible, Raphael. So damn stubborn. You refuse to even consider another perspective. You'd rather burn everything we built to the ground than fight for a win." The pause after her outburst was so heavy it almost felt rehearsed, as if the scene was just waiting for its next line. Slowly, the other women in the room turned their eyes toward me. None of them dared to speak. They had assembled like spectators at a play, waiting for me to crumble, maybe even to beg. Instead, they witnessed their carefully orchestrated ambush unravel before their eyes. Without a sound, I made my way across the room to the coat rack, sliding into my jacket with deliberate, measured movements. "My attorney will handle things from here," I said, giving Clara only a fleeting, almost indifferent glance. "Good luck with your version of empowerment," I tossed over my shoulder as I walked out. "You're going to need it." And just like that, I left them standing there, paralyzed in the kind of silence you hear when someone pulls the plug on the sermon lights. But I wasn't delivering sermons anymore, and I sure as hell wasn't sticking around to hear theirs. Even after that final explosion, I didn't go crawling back. There were no long nights of second-guessing, no moments of doubt pulling at me. I filed for divorce. That single act was enough to shake Clara to her core, just enough to spark a tiny, desperate glimmer of false hope. She started behaving like I might reconsider, like maybe the whole thing was just a bluff. Her entourage, friends, relatives, all the people who had been her loudest cheerleaders, flooded my phone with calls and texts. "Think it over, Raphael. You're just emotional. Don't throw away your marriage over some little misunderstanding." A misunderstanding? They had no idea. Behind the scenes, I was already a step ahead. I had hired a private investigator. I wasn't going to move on hearsay. I needed undeniable evidence, something she couldn't twist or spin into another sob story when the time came. Because deep down, I knew she'd try. She'd try to reframe her betrayal, dress it up as emotional exploration, or some other carefully worded excuse. Or worse, she'd paint herself as a tragic figure who had simply outgrown me. It didn't take long. She slipped up. Big time. The evidence was brutal. Clara and Caleb, multiple secret meetings, hotels, including a chic boutique place she once claimed was too sterile and cold for romance. Clearly, her opinion had changed. I could feel my blood boil when I combed through the PI's findings. Blurry surveillance shots, timestamps, copies of hotel key records, snippets of overheard conversations. But I didn't let the fury control me. I didn't scream at her. I didn't throw accusations in her face. Because by then, the woman I had once loved was already just a memory. The very next morning, I filed the divorce papers. The only thing I remotely regretted was not anonymously sending that damning evidence to her job. Not out of spite, but to serve as a sharp reminder that actions have consequences. Maybe it would have forced her to think twice before twisting buzzwords and fake narratives against the next person she burned. So here's the takeaway. Never let the noise of the crowd, no matter how righteous or deafening it seems, pressure you into betraying yourself. Volume isn't truth. Agreement isn't integrity. If you have values, guard them like your life depends on it. If something is worth standing for, stand, no matter how long it takes. Because if you don't, You'll wake up one day and realize you gave away pieces of yourself until there's nothing left. Now, on to the second story. Ever seen those shows about people who win the lottery only to end up broke and living in some busted-up van a few years later? Yeah, this is kind of like that, but with a twist. Let's rewind a bit. My name's Derek. I'm 41, living in Ohio, working a regular logistics job. Nothing glamorous. My mornings start with coffee, sorting through emails, making sure freight gets to where it needs to go. Just an average guy living an average life. Well, at least it was, until everything went sideways about 7 years ago. That's when I married Megan. On the surface, we looked like a picture-perfect couple ripped from a magazine. She was breathtaking, the kind of woman who could make an entire grocery store aisle stop in their tracks. She had a razor-sharp wit, too. And man, could she talk circles around anyone. There was a magnetic energy about her. Strangers would open up to her within minutes. She could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman wearing white gloves and convince her it was a once-in-a-lifetime deal. As for me, I was the quiet type, content with simple things, backyard grilling on weekends, watching Sunday football, steering clear of anything that even smelled like drama. I treated conflict like it was contagious. But Megan? She thrived on it. She needed the chaos like oxygen. At first I didn't catch on. Love has a way of silencing the alarm bells your gut tries to ring. It started with tiny things, so small they barely registered. One afternoon, she swung her car keys around her finger and casually said, "Hey, babe, it would be easier if we put the house under my name. You know, just in case." I shot her a look. In case of what exactly? She shrugged like it was no big deal. I don't know. A bus accident. An IRS audit. Just safer that way. I should have asked a lot more questions, but I didn't. I didn't want to fight. It became second nature, not pushing back anymore. Before I knew it, her name was on the car title. Then it was on the utility accounts, even the Costco membership. I cracked a joke one day saying, "What's next? You want the gas points too?" I tossed it out like it was nothing. She just smirked. "Don't be so over the top, Derek. It's just paperwork. Fast forward 5 years. Now I'm holed up in the guest room because she claims she needed space to figure things out." "Figure out what?" I asked, standing in the doorway with my blanket thrown over my arm. She didn't even look up from her phone. "Everything," she said. "Us. Life." "I don't know, Derek. You're just there, like some sad houseplant." She glanced up then, just to add, "Not even a nice one." That one hit like a punch to the gut. I tried to shrug it off, telling myself every relationship hits rocky patches. Maybe she just needed a little breathing room. Maybe she'd remember she loved me. Spoiler alert, she didn't. Then the phone call came. "Mr. Saunders, this is Season Bank Collections. We're contacting you about several overdue balances amounting to 24403-781. I almost dropped the phone. "What overdue balances?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I don't even bank with you." The woman on the line paused. "Sir, you're listed as a co-signer on an account belonging to Megan Saunders. Does that name sound familiar?" "Familiar?" It landed like a kick to the ribs. That evening, I tried to confront her. She was sprawled on the couch with a glass of rosé in one hand, scrolling on her phone with the other. "We need to talk," I said. She didn't even glance at me. "If this is about the dishes, I told you I'd do them." "It's not," I said. "It's about $24,000 in debt." Her thumb froze mid-scroll. She let out a light laugh like I'd just told a joke. "Oh, that? Chill out, Derek. It's not a big deal. You would have blown that money on something dumb anyway, like a boat or something. Spa weekends, designer purses, trips to Cabo. Same difference, right?" I held up the printed account statement. "You said you were staying at your sister's place." She stood up, the smirk dropping from her face. "You're acting like I committed some huge crime." "You did," I said quietly. She rolled her eyes. "You know what your problem is? You're boring, predictable. You think love is flipping burgers and rewatching Frasier like you're already retired. Honestly, I did you a favor by sticking around this long. I couldn't even find words. I just stood there, staring at her. 2 weeks later, a process server rang my doorbell. Divorce papers. Megan cited emotional neglect and, absurdly, financial instability. Ever felt like you're working 60-hour weeks just to prop up someone else's lifestyle? That was my life. Years spent showing up, grinding away, thinking that's what love meant. I had my own idea of commitment. Turns out it didn't count for much. She walked away with everything. The house I put the down payment on, the SUV I gave her for our anniversary, half my retirement savings. What did I get? A duffel bag of clothes, a PS5, and my grill. That was it. Technically, I had a signed piece of paper saying I wasn't a deadbeat. The divorce was finalized in February. By June, I was renting a depressing 2-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner, living off dollar store burritos and microwave ramen. Every day felt like trudging through thick, wet cement, wondering how much worse it could get. Spoiler: it didn't get worse. It got way, way better. July 3rd. A date burned into my brain forever. On my way home from another long day at work, I stopped at a gas station to grab a Gatorade. For no real reason, I bought 2 scratch-off tickets. The first one, total dud. The second one, it changed everything. I scratched it slowly, thinking there had to be a mistake. I stared at it so long I thought maybe I was hallucinating. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't dreaming. I called my buddy Liam, hands shaking. He thought I was messing with him. "Liam, swear to God, look at this," I said, shoving the ticket up to the camera on my phone. "It's real. $6,200,000. There was silence. Then Liam cracked up laughing. "Dude, you're baked," he said. "You didn't win, Jack. Chill out." "I'm serious," I yelled. "I'm looking right at it. $6 million. He thought I was joking. I wasn't. One day, without warning, I became a millionaire. And just as fast, I started doubting everything around me. Trust people? Not a chance. My soul? Pretty battered. No doubt about it. Still, there was no way I was going to blow this. I zipped my lips, didn't tell a soul. By the next morning, I had a lawyer on retainer and had the winning ticket claimed through them, anonymously. We built a trust, chose the lump sum payout, and after the tax man took his share, I ended up with a little more than $4 million resting securely in my bank. It wasn't private island money, but it was sure as hell goodbye forever to ramen noodle nights. My first move? Nothing. No flashy car in the driveway. No new money selfies online. I didn't even replace my cracked old phone. I just sat with it quietly. I met with my lawyer a few times, made a few smart investments, paid off my truck loan, and kept my mouth firmly shut. That peace and quiet. It lasted about 3 weeks. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, my phone buzzed. It was Megan. "Hey, stranger. Wondering how you've been. Coffee sometime?" I looked at that message like it was a venomous snake. Alarms blared in my head. She hadn't acknowledged me once on social media since the divorce, and Megan wasn't the type to reach out without a reason. So why now? I left the message unanswered. 2 days later, another text popped up. "Heard a little rumor. Hope it's not true, but if it is, maybe we should catch up. Love." My stomach dropped. Rumor? What rumor? I hadn't breathed a word to anyone, not to Liam, not even to my lawyer, apart from what was necessary. So how on earth did she catch wind of it? Turned out Liam's girlfriend had let it slip to her cousin, who mentioned it to her hairdresser, who, in a classic small-town twist of fate, just happened to be Megan's stylist. Even then, I kept silent. But this time, I documented everything. Screenshotted her messages and shot them straight over to my lawyer. "Megan's fishing for something," I texted him. "I want no contact, just keeping you in the loop." And that was it. I put it all in his hands. Best decision I ever made, hiring Ron Jeremy. No, not that Ron Jeremy. My lawyer. Ron's the kind of guy who could stare down a hurricane without blinking. Calm, ruthless, and endlessly patient. If you're looking to demolish drama, Ron's the man. But Megan? She didn't exactly believe in walking away quietly. Of course not. Megan had always acted like the world owed her center stage, and if you didn't cooperate, she only clawed harder. It escalated fast. She showed up at my work pretending like we were old friends. Dropped off a basket of muffins at my house like we were living some Hallmark reunion. Voicemail after voicemail flooded in, each one a performance about forgiveness, second chances, the shortness of life. One message had her sobbing, "Life's too short to hold grudges." It felt like a low-budget soap opera. But I wasn't falling for it. Then she played her big card. She dragged me into court. She actually filed a legal motion claiming our divorce settlement was invalid because I had supposedly hidden assets from her. Let that sink in. She accused me of hiding lottery winnings that didn't even exist until after the divorce papers were signed. My first thought? You've got to be kidding me. I didn't even have to show up. Ron handled it all. Megan stormed into court armed like she was going to war. But Ron came prepared. Bank statements, ticket validation records, tax paperwork, every document neatly lined up, irrefutable. There was no twisting the truth into some tragic story. And then it got even better. Her lawyer floated this absurd argument that I must have somehow known I would win, and should have disclosed it during the divorce, like I had some magic crystal ball. The judge? He actually laughed, out loud. Didn't even pretend to be polite about it. He dismissed her case with prejudice, meaning she couldn't ever bring it up again. Megan stormed out of the courtroom in a rage. Word around town is she unleashed a tantrum on her lawyer right there in the hallway, smashed her purse on the floor, and cried her eyes out in the parking lot for an hour straight. It sounded like something straight out of trashy reality TV. I didn't bother showing up to see the meltdown. Instead, I kicked back on my balcony with a cold beer, watching the sunset. That was the flavor of real freedom, real victory. Now I live quietly in a lake house, with a screened-in porch and a dock where I spend long weekends fishing. I donate to a local animal shelter. Sometimes I travel, and I never ever look back. Nothing flashy, just quiet getaways to places where no one knows my face. And Megan? Last I heard, she's dating some guy who hawks cryptocurrency on Instagram. Best of luck to him. He's going to need it in spades. As for me, I don't carry a single ounce of regret. Not about the marriage, not about any of it. It taught me priceless lessons, how to protect my peace, make sharper decisions, and, most importantly, when to let my lawyer handle the ugly parts. A month after the judge dismissed her final motion, I was convinced the ordeal was finally buried. Done. Finished. I genuinely thought I was free. But if there's one thing you can bet on with Megan, it's that she's like a cockroach with a router, always finding a way to sneak back into your life when you least expect it. One crisp October morning, I was out on the porch, coffee in hand, watching ducks squabble like grumpy old men when there was a knock at the door. It wasn't James needing another jump start, and it wasn't Amazon leaving yet another mystery package. No, it was Megan's mother, dolled up in pearls and carrying a tray of banana bread like some sort of peace envoy. "Derek, darling," she crooned, her voice so sugary it could cause a toothache. She launched into a heartfelt plea. Megan wasn't doing well. She was struggling. Sure, she made mistakes. Who hasn't? Maybe, just maybe, I could help her find her footing again. I just stood there, staring at her like she'd asked me to donate a kidney to someone who keyed my car. "You mean Megan, the one who stole my house and tried to sue me over lottery winnings she never touched?" I asked, arching an eyebrow. Her smile faltered. She shifted gears, voice quivering now, talking about how emotional women can get when they're scared. Nice try. I wasn't falling for it. Without missing a beat, I said, "Tell Megan there's this little thing called OnlyFans, and tell her I hope she gets run over by a truck." Then I closed the door in her face without a second glance. She left the banana bread on the porch like a pitiful peace offering. I handed it over to my neighbor's dog, who frankly enjoyed it a lot more than I ever would have. I half expected the poor mutt to keel over, but after a few days, he was still out there chasing squirrels like a champ, so I figured the bread was harmless. 3 days later, Megan herself reached out, through email of all things. She must have been truly desperate to resurrect such an ancient form of communication. Her message was a rambling train wreck of declarations. She never stopped loving me, life had been unbearably stressful, the house meant nothing without me, money wasn't the answer to happiness. The usual routine. I forwarded the whole melodramatic essay to my lawyer, Ron Jeremy. No, not that Ron Jeremy, just in case she decided to stir up more nonsense. And just when I thought we had finally reached the end credits of this sorry little film, she escalated it. One night, mindlessly scrolling through Facebook, checking on people I barely remembered, I stumbled across a public post from Megan. A carefully posed selfie, her looking utterly broken on a park bench. The caption? "Some people win the lottery but lose their soul." Not naming names, but wow. Just wow. The comments section erupted. Half the crowd poured on the fake sympathy. "You deserve the world, queen." The other half? They knew better and dragged her without mercy. One guy wrote, "You stole his house, sued him for winnings you didn't earn, and now you're crying online? Sit down." Another woman simply posted a popcorn gif. It was glorious. Just when I thought the circus had finally packed up and left town, Megan pulled one last stunt. She showed up, at my work. Now I work at a distribution center, forklifts buzzing around, steel-toed boots, hard hats, the whole deal. One of the warehouse guys flagged me down, looking awkward. Derek? There's a lady out front. Lots of cleavage? Says she's your wife?" Correction, ex-wife. I walked up to the entrance, and there she was, dressed to kill like she was ready for a red carpet premiere. Full makeup, sky-high heels, push-up bra, crocodile tears locked and loaded. "Derek," she wailed, loud enough for the entire front office to hear, "please, just hear me out. I made a mistake. I never should have left you." Now I'm not one for public drama anymore. I hate scenes. But I was done playing along. Keeping my voice even, I said, "Megan, this is harassment. Leave now or I'm calling the police." The look she gave me, like I had just driven a knife straight through her heart. "You wouldn't call the cops on me," she whispered. "Oh, not me," I said, calm as ever, "but my lawyer would be thrilled to handle it." She froze, realizing she had no more cards to play. Finally, she turned on her heel and walked away. And that was the last time I ever saw her in person. Now, you might be wondering what happened to all the money. Let me set the record straight. It's not private jets and champagne towers. I kept my part-time warehouse gig, just enough to keep me grounded. I bought my mom a simple house closer to her sisters, so they could swap gossip in person instead of over the phone. I started a college fund for my niece. I fish, I travel, I spend slow mornings on my porch, just watching life roll by. I've been learning to play guitar, badly, but with enthusiasm. I donate to causes I actually believe in. And yes, sometimes I take naps in the middle of the day just because I can. Sometimes real peace looks like a quiet morning without a single email from your ex. Other times it's knowing you could destroy someone legally but choosing not to, because your lawyer already did it for you. Our story comes to an end here. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you enjoyed this story, please check out other videos on this channel. See you soon, my dear friend.